few days ago, a friend tagged me in a Facebook post that featured a video of John MacArthur. In the video, somebody from the audience asks him, "Can a woman be an elder?" And he responds inter alia by quoting 1 Timothy 2 verse 12, "I do not permit a woman to teach or to exercise authority over a man." In explaining this passage, MacArthur begins by saying that for 1900 and some odd years, the church was unified in its interpretation that this verse spoke against women being elders. In other words, the argument is that because we have an extended, consistent interpretation of this passage that goes back hundreds, or in this case, almost 2,000 years, new interpretations can't be right. What do we make of this kind of interpretation? Well, it is, frankly, just a bad argument. It's a bad argument and a grossly unsound canon or yardstick for interpreting Scripture. Can you imagine if the likes of Luther and Calvin had taken the view that because for the last 1500 years there's been a consistent interpretation in the church around justification by faith and things like sola scriptura, because we've got this extending tradition that goes all the way back to wherever it starts, new interpretations can't be right? If they had interpreted Scripture that way, I'm pretty sure we would all still be Roman Catholics. When we think of some of the other dynamics where long-standing traditions have needed to be challenged, do you realize that it was only in the late 1700s that a significant group of Christian voices began to campaign against slavery? And it was William Wilberforce's conversion to evangelical Christianity and being influenced by that interpretation that eventually led to the Abolition Act in 1807 in England. Do you realize that in Western democracies as late as 1918 in England and 1920 in America, women were precluded from voting? So the point is to say that simply because we've always had a particular set of blinkers in terms of how we read a passage of Scripture, those blinkers are necessarily correct, and that new takes on Scripture that might challenge those should be rejected on the basis of tradition, is just a bad argument and a great example of how not to interpret the Bible.